Throughout human history, dogs have earned their title as man's best friend, not merely through companionship, but through remarkable acts of bravery, loyalty, and selflessness. These incredible animals have saved countless lives, often risking or sacrificing their own in the process. The following collection presents true stories of heroic dogs whose actions transcended instinct and demonstrated an almost incomprehensible dedication to protecting and rescuing the humans they loved. Balto, the sled dog who raced against death, perhaps one of the most famous canine heroes in American history. Balto was a Siberian husky who led his team through a blizzard to deliver life-saving medicine during the 1925 Serum Run to Nome, Alaska. This event, known as the Great Race of Mercy, stands as one of the most dramatic rescue missions in history. In January 1925, the isolated town of Nome faced a devastating diphtheria outbreak. Diphtheria, a deadly bacterial infection, was spreading rapidly among the town's children, and without antitoxin serum, many would die. The nearest supply was in Anchorage, nearly 1,000 miles away. With the harbor frozen and aircraft unable to fly in the brutal winter conditions, the only option was to transport the serum by dog sled relay across the treacherous Alaskan wilderness. 20 mushers and more than 150 sled dogs participated in this relay, but it was Balto and his musher Gunnar Kazan who completed the final and most dangerous leg of the journey. On February 2, 1925, they faced temperatures plummeting to minus 85 degrees Fahrenheit with wind chill along with blinding snow and gale force winds that made visibility nearly impossible. During this harrowing journey, Kazan's hands became so numb he could barely hold the sled's handlebar. At one point, the team broke through ice and Kazan had to pull each dog out of the freezing water. When the sled overturned in a particularly vicious gust of wind, the precious cargo of serum flew into a snowbank. In complete darkness and howling winds, Kazan desperately searched for the package while his hands froze. It was Balto who kept the team calm and positioned, preventing them from running off or becoming disoriented in the whiteout conditions. After finding the serum, Kazan realized he was so disoriented that he couldn't determine which direction to travel. He gave Balto his head, trusting the dog's instincts completely. Balto led them through the blizzard, navigating by instinct and memory when even the trail markers were invisible. The black and white husky somehow found the trail and pulled the team through conditions that would have killed them all if they had stopped. They arrived in Nome on February 2nd at 5:30 a.m., having traveled 53 miles through the storm in just 7.5 hours. The serum was still intact and the outbreak was contained. Thanks to Balto and all the dogs and mushers in the relay, only 3 children died from the outbreak instead of the hundreds that were expected. Balto became an instant celebrity. A statue of him was erected in New York's Central Park later that same year, where it still stands today. The inscription reads Durance, Fidelity, Intelligence. The annual Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race commemorates this heroic mission, ensuring that Balto's legacy endures. Tracker, the German Shepherd of Ground Zero, on September 11, 2001, as the World Trade Center towers collapsed in New York City, creating one of the worst disasters in American history. Search and rescue dogs from across the country rushed to Ground Zero. Among them was Tracker, a German Shepherd from Halifax, Nova Scotia, and his handler, Canadian Police Officer James Symington. Symington and Tracker drove 15 hours straight from Canada to New York City, arriving at the devastated site on the evening of September 11th. For the next 2 days, this incredible dog worked tirelessly through the smoking rubble, twisted steel, and dangerous debris, searching for survivors in conditions that were almost incomprehensible in their devastation and hazard. The air was thick with toxic dust, smoke, and the acrid smell of burning materials. The rubble was unstable, with fires still burning beneath the surface and the constant danger of further collapse. Sharp metal protruded from every surface, and the temperature of some areas was hot enough to burn through boots. Yet Tracker continued searching, his keen nose working to detect any sign of human life beneath the wreckage. On September 12th, after hours of searching through the night, Tracker detected something. He began digging frantically at a particular spot in the rubble, refusing to leave despite his handler's attempts to move him to other areas. Tracker's persistence paid off. Beneath the debris lay Janelle Guzman McMillan, an office worker who had been trapped under the rubble for more than 26 hours. She was the last survivor pulled from Ground Zero alive. Guzman McMillan had been on the 13th floor of the North Tower when it collapsed. She was buried under concrete and steel, with a broken leg and numerous other injuries, barely conscious and nearly giving up hope when she heard the sounds of digging above her. Thanks to Tracker's keen senses and determination, she was rescued and survived. The physical and emotional toll on Tracker was immense. After returning home, he suffered from various health problems, including respiratory issues from the toxic dust, exhaustion, and chemical burns on his paws. Despite his deteriorating health, Tracker had given everything he had to save lives at Ground Zero. In recognition of his heroism, Tracker was inducted into the Purina Animal Hall of Fame. When Tracker passed away in April 2009, his legacy was honored in an extraordinary way. BioArts International, a biotech company, had held a competition called the Golden Clone Giveaway to clone the world's most clone-worthy dog. Tracker 1 and 5 puppies were successfully cloned from his DNA. While controversial, this ensured that Tracker's genetic legacy would continue, a testament to his extraordinary heroism. Kabang, the dog who sacrificed her face in December 2011 in Zamboanga City, Philippines, a yellow-brown mixed breed dog named Kabang performed an act of heroism that would cost her dearly but saved 2 young lives. The dog belonged to Rudy Bungle and his family, who lived in a modest home where Kabang was treated as a beloved family member. On that fateful day, Bungle's daughter Dina, age 9, and her cousin Princess, age 3, were heading to school. As they approached a busy intersection, a speeding motorcycle came barreling toward them. The driver had lost control, and the motorcycle was heading straight for the 2 children, who were frozen in fear in its path. Kabang, who had been walking with the children, saw the danger instantly. Without hesitation, she leaped between the motorcycle and the girls, taking the full force of the impact. The collision was devastating. Kabang's entire snout from her nose to her upper jaw was completely severed. The motorcycle crashed, but the 2 girls were knocked safely to the side, sustaining only minor injuries. When the family rushed Kabang to a veterinarian, the extent of her injuries was horrifying. She had lost her entire upper jaw and nose, leaving her face terribly disfigured. The local veterinarian did what he could, but resources in the Philippines were limited. Despite her catastrophic injuries, Kabang survived, but eating and breathing became difficult challenges she would face every day. The story of Kabang's sacrifice spread through local media and eventually reached the international community. Her plight touched hearts around the world, and people began donating money to help fund her medical care. Over 20,000 was raised through a Care2 petition and Facebook campaign. In 2012, Kabang was flown to the University of California, Davis, where veterinary specialists performed reconstructive surgery. The team had to address not only the missing snout, but also a cancer that had developed in her facial area and a parasitic infection. The surgery took months of preparation and multiple procedures, but the veterinary team was determined to give Kabang the best quality of life possible. Dr. Frank Verstraete, a veterinary dentist who led Kabang's care, created a custom prosthetic for her face and worked to ensure she could eat and breathe comfortably. After months of recovery, Kabang was healthy enough to return home to the Philippines in July 2013. Her homecoming was celebrated throughout the country. She was greeted by hundreds of well-wishers, including the mayor of Zamboanga City. Kabang's story resonated globally because it demonstrated the selfless love that dogs have for their human families. She didn't calculate the risk or consider her own safety. She simply saw children she loved in danger and acted to protect them. Today, despite her disfigurement, Kabang lives happily with her family, a living testament to canine heroism. Roselle, the guide dog who led her owner down 78 floors, September 11, 2001, produced many heroes, both human and canine. Among them was Roselle, a yellow Labrador Retriever guide dog who saved her blind owner Michael Hinkson from the 78th floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Hinkson, a sales manager for a data protection and recovery company, had been blind since birth. He and Roselle had been working together for only about a year, but they had developed a strong bond of trust. On that Tuesday morning, Hinkson was in his office on the 78th floor when American Airlines Flight 11 struck the North Tower at 8:46 a.m., hitting floors 93 through 99 just above where they were located. The impact was tremendous. The entire building swayed violently. Office furniture toppled over and debris rained down from the ceiling. People began screaming and rushing toward the exits in panic. In the chaos and confusion, with smoke beginning to fill the air and the overwhelming smell of jet fuel, Roselle remained completely calm. Hinkson could have easily panicked. He was blind, 78 floors up in a burning building, with thousands of people trying to evacuate simultaneously. But Roselle's calm demeanor helped keep him focused. As they entered the crowded stairwell, Roselle expertly navigated each step, guiding Hinkson safely down while thousands of panicked people rushed past them. The descent took nearly an hour. The stairwells were narrow, crowded, hot, and increasingly filled with smoke. Firefighters were rushing up the stairs carrying heavy equipment, creating additional congestion. At several points, Hinkson and others tried to give Roselle water, but she refused to drink. She was completely focused on her job of getting her owner to safety. Throughout the evacuation, Roselle remained calm and steady, never showing fear despite the chaos around her. Other evacuees later reported that seeing Roselle's calm behavior helped them control their own panic. The dog wasn't just saving her owner. Her composed presence was helping everyone around them remain calmer. They finally emerged from the building at ground level, but they weren't safe yet. Just as they exited, the South Tower collapsed, sending a massive cloud of debris, dust, and smoke rushing through the streets. Roselle immediately led Hinkson into a nearby subway station to escape the choking cloud, even as the thunderous roar of the collapse filled the air and the world turned dark with dust. Roselle kept moving forward, leading her owner to safety. Once they were safe, Hinkson made sure Roselle got the water she had refused during the evacuation. They made their way to a friend's apartment in Midtown Manhattan, where they finally saw the full extent of the tragedy on television. Minutes after they had exited the North Tower, it too collapsed. Had Roselle not remained so calm and efficient in guiding Hinkson down those stairs, they might not have made it out in time. Roselle's heroism was recognized with numerous awards, including the American Kennel Club's Award for Canine Excellence and the British PDSA Dickon Medal, considered the highest award any animal can receive for bravery in the United Kingdom. She traveled with Hinkson to schools and events, sharing their story and inspiring others. Roselle passed away in 2011 at age 13, having lived a full life as both a hero and a beloved companion. Brittany, the last 9/11 search dog while track found the last survivor at Ground Zero. Another dog's story of heroism spans far beyond that single event. Brittany, a golden retriever, was just 2 years old when she and her handler, Denise Corliss, deployed to Ground Zero on September 11, 2001. As the youngest search dog on site, Brittany worked 12-hour shifts for 10 days straight, searching through the rubble for survivors and remains. The conditions were horrific: toxic dust, sharp metal debris, unstable rubble piles, and the constant danger of collapse. Yet Brittany worked tirelessly, her enthusiasm never waning despite the grim task. Like all search dogs at Ground Zero, she found no survivors, only remains, which can be emotionally traumatic even for dogs. But Brittany continued her work with dedication, providing not just search capabilities but also emotional comfort to the exhausted firefighters and rescue workers who would take breaks to pet her and find a moment of solace. What makes Brittany's story extraordinary is not just her work at Ground Zero, but her continued service over the next 15 years. She went on to serve in disaster zones across the country. In 2005, she deployed to hurricane-ravaged areas after Hurricane Katrina, searching for survivors in the flooded streets of New Orleans. She worked in disaster zones in Texas and California, always ready to serve when called upon. Even as she aged and retired from active search and rescue work, Brittany continued to serve her community. She became a reading assistance dog, working with elementary school students in Texas, lying patiently as children read to her, building their confidence and literacy skills. This gentle therapy work was as important as her dramatic rescue work. She was still helping people, just in a different way. In 2014, Brittany and Corliss returned to New York City to visit the 9/11 Memorial and Museum. It was an emotional journey, returning to the site where Brittany had worked so hard 13 years earlier. She was treated like the hero she was, with police escorts and a stay at a luxury hotel where the staff rolled out a red carpet for her arrival. On June 6, 2016, Brittany was euthanized at age 16 due to declining health and kidney failure. She was the last surviving 9/11 search dog. Her final journey was marked with the honor she deserved. Texas Task Force 1 members lined up in formation outside the veterinary clinic, saluting as Corliss walked Brittany in for the last time. An American flag was draped over her body after she passed, and a memorial service was held in her honor. Brittany's life represents the very best of what dogs can be: courageous in crisis, dedicated in service, and gentle in companionship. From the rubble of Ground Zero to the reading circles of elementary schools, she spent her entire life helping humans, embodying the noblest qualities of her species. Dorado, the service dog who refused to leave. Another remarkable story from September 11, 2001 involves Dorado, a yellow Labrador retriever who was the guide dog for Omar Rivera, a computer technician who worked on the 71st floor of the North Tower. When the plane struck the building above them, Rivera knew he had to evacuate, but he faced a terrible dilemma. The stairwells were chaos. Thousands of people rushing down in panic, smoke filling the air, and the very real possibility that the building might collapse at any moment. Rivera made the agonizing decision to unleash Dorado, giving him the freedom to escape on his own. A dog could move much faster through the panicked crowds without having to guide a blind person. Rivera believed he had given Dorado his only chance at survival. But Dorado refused to leave. Despite being freed from his harness and the obligations of his job, the loyal dog stayed by Rivera's side. In fact, when Dorado momentarily disappeared in the chaos, Rivera feared he had finally run off to save himself. Instead, Dorado returned just moments later. He had gone to check on another person in distress before coming back to his owner. Together, they began the long descent. A co-worker also stayed with them to help, and the three of them, Rivera, his colleague, and Dorado, slowly made their way down 71 floors of stairs through the smoke, heat, and terrified crowds. The journey took nearly an hour, and throughout it all, Dorado remained calm and focused, carefully guiding Rivera down each step. They emerged from the building and moved away to safety. Just 20 minutes after they escaped, the North Tower collapsed. Had they been even slightly slower, all three would have perished. Rivera credits Dorado with saving his life. Not just because the dog guided him down the stairs, but because Dorado's calm presence helped him stay focused and not give in to panic. What makes Dorado's story particularly poignant is that moment when Rivera unleashed him, giving him freedom and permission to save himself. Dorado's choice to stay was not obligation or training. It was love and loyalty. He could have run, could have saved himself, but he refused to abandon his human. This speaks to the extraordinary bond between service dogs and their handlers, a connection that transcends duty and enters the realm of profound love. Dorado passed away in 2010 at age 12, having lived his entire life as a hero and devoted companion. Rivera has spoken extensively about Dorado's heroism, ensuring that the world remembers the dog who had every reason to run but chose to stay. Frida, the rescue dog who became Mexico's national hero more recently, a yellow Labrador retriever named Frida captured the world's attention for her heroic work following devastating earthquakes in Mexico. Frida served as a search and rescue dog with the Mexican Navy, and over her career she saved or located more than 52 people trapped in disasters in Mexico, Haiti, Ecuador, and other countries. Her most famous work came after the powerful 7.1 magnitude earthquake that struck Mexico City on September 19, 2017, killing more than 370 people and collapsing dozens of buildings. As rescue workers rushed to the scene, Frida was deployed to search for survivors trapped under the rubble of collapsed structures. Fitted with her distinctive protective goggles, harness, and booties to protect her paws from sharp debris, Frida worked tirelessly through the dangerous collapsed buildings. Her job was to detect signs of life beneath the rubble, alerting her handlers to locations where survivors might be trapped. She navigated unstable debris piles where one wrong step could trigger further collapse, entering spaces too dangerous or small for human rescuers. What captured the public's imagination was not just Frida's skill, but her distinctive appearance and the photos that emerged of her working in the disaster zone. Images of Frida wearing her protective gear with her tail wagging brought hope to a grieving nation. She became a symbol of resilience and determination in the face of tragedy. The Mexican people embraced Frida as a national hero. Murals were painted of her throughout Mexico City. People created artwork, songs, and social media campaigns celebrating her service. She appeared on the cover of national magazines. The Mexican Navy even created a special Twitter account to share updates about Frida's work, which quickly gained hundreds of thousands of followers. Frida retired from active service in 2019 at age 10, after nearly a decade of rescue work. Her retirement ceremony was attended by government officials and naval commanders, befitting a hero of her stature. Even in retirement, Frida continued to serve, working with the Navy to help train the next generation of search and rescue dogs. What makes Frida's story significant is how she inspired an entire nation during one of its darkest moments. While the earthquake had caused tremendous loss and suffering, Frida represented hope, dedication, and the possibility of miracles. She reminded people that even in the worst disasters, there are heroes working tirelessly to save lives. Modi, the dog who fought off a leopard in 2020 in the Sirohi district of Rajasthan, India, a small, thin stray dog named Modi performed an act of courage that would have seemed impossible for an animal of his size. A 7-year-old boy was playing in his family's courtyard when a leopard suddenly entered the compound, drawn by the presence of livestock. Leopards are apex predators, weighing up to 200 pounds and equipped with razor-sharp claws and powerful jaws. They can kill prey much larger than themselves with ease. When the leopard spotted the boy, it began moving toward him. Seeing easy prey, Modi, who weighed perhaps 30 pounds and had been living as a stray, immediately charged at the leopard. The small dog barked furiously and positioned himself between the boy and the massive predator. The leopard struck at Modi with its powerful paw, sending the small dog tumbling, but Modi immediately got back up and charged again. This confrontation gave the boy's family crucial seconds to react. They rushed out, creating noise and commotion that, combined with Modi's aggressive defense, caused the leopard to retreat. The boy was unharmed. Modi, however, had sustained serious injuries from the leopard's claws and needed immediate veterinary attention. The incident was captured on the family's security camera, and the footage went viral across India and internationally. People were stunned to see such a small dog confronting a leopard without hesitation. Modi's bravery inspired widespread admiration, and donations poured in for his veterinary care. The family, who had never officially owned Modi but had fed him occasionally, formally adopted him after the incident. Local officials honored Modi with an award, and animal welfare organizations celebrated his courage. His story resonated particularly in India, where street dogs often face mistreatment despite frequently showing remarkable loyalty to communities that feed them. Modi's story illustrates that heroism isn't about size or strength. It's about courage and willingness to act when it matters most. This small stray dog had every reason to run from a leopard, one of nature's most efficient predators, but instead he stood his ground to protect a child. Duke, the dog who saved a baby in 2012 in Portland, Oregon, a 9-week-old baby named Harper was sleeping in her bassinet when she stopped breathing. Her parents were asleep in another room, unaware of the crisis unfolding. But Duke, the family's newly adopted dog, a mixed breed they had rescued from a shelter just a few weeks earlier, knew something was terribly wrong. Duke began acting frantically, jumping on the parents' bed repeatedly and refusing to stop despite their commands. This was completely out of character for the dog, who had been gentle and quiet since his adoption. The mother, Jenna Brousseau, was initially annoyed by Duke's behavior, but something about his persistence made her get up to check on the baby. When she entered Harper's room, she found her infant daughter blue and not breathing. She screamed for her husband, and they immediately called 911 while performing CPR on their baby. Thanks to their quick response, Harper started breathing again before the paramedics arrived. Doctors later confirmed that if Duke hadn't alerted the parents when he did, Harper would have died. The Brousseau family had only owned Duke for about a week when this happened. They had adopted him from a shelter where he had been slated for euthanasia. In that short time, Duke had bonded enough with the family to understand that the baby was in danger and to know how to alert the adults. He had no special training as a medical alert dog, just natural instinct and a deep connection to his new family. Duke's story is remarkable because it demonstrates how rescue dogs often seem to understand that they've been given a second chance at life and respond with incredible loyalty. The Brousseaus had saved Duke from euthanasia, and Duke in turn saved their baby's life. This mutual rescue created a bond that lasted for years, with Duke becoming Harper's constant companion and protector as she grew up. Riley, the PTSD service dog who saved his handler, veterans returning from combat often struggle with invisible wounds, PTSD, depression, anxiety, and other mental health challenges. Service dogs trained to work with veterans have saved countless lives, not through dramatic physical rescues, but by providing stability, companionship, and literal life-saving intervention during crises. Riley, a golden retriever, was one such hero. Staff Sergeant Jake Johnson, name change for privacy, returned from multiple deployments in Afghanistan struggling with severe PTSD. He experienced nightmares, panic attacks, hypervigilance, and depression. Despite support from the VA and his family, Jake reached a point where he was seriously contemplating suicide. That's when he was matched with Riley through a service dog organization. Riley was trained to perform multiple tasks, waking Jake from nightmares, creating physical space between Jake and others in crowded places, reducing anxiety, applying deep pressure therapy during panic attacks, and reminding Jake to take medication. But Riley's most important task was one that couldn't be taught in traditional training: sensing when Jake was in psychological crisis. On multiple occasions, when Jake's depression became overwhelming and his thoughts turned to suicide, Riley would become persistently attentive, refusing to leave Jake's side, bringing him his leash, indicating they needed to go outside, or performing his deep pressure therapy unbidden. This intervention would snap Jake out of his dangerous thought patterns long enough for him to reach out for help or simply get through the worst moments. Jake later described Riley as being able to sense changes in his breathing, heart rate, or body language that preceded his worst mental health episodes. Riley would intervene before Jake was fully in crisis, helping to prevent the episodes from escalating. Having Riley depended on him, needing walks, meals, and care, also gave Jake a reason to keep going on days when he might otherwise have given up. Service dogs like Riley save lives every day in ways that aren't as dramatic as pulling someone from a burning building, but are no less real. They provide stability, purpose, and intervention during mental health crises. For veterans like Jake, Riley wasn't just a pet or even a medical tool. He was a lifeline, a reason to live, and a hero in every sense of the word. Pasha, the rescue dog who found life in the rubble in February 2023, a devastating earthquake struck Turkey and Syria, killing more than 50,000 people and leaving millions homeless. Search and rescue teams from around the world rushed to the disaster zone, bringing their highly trained search dogs to help locate survivors trapped beneath collapsed buildings. One of these dogs was Pasha, a German shepherd from a Turkish rescue team. Pasha worked tirelessly for days in the rubble of Hatay province, one of the hardest hit areas. The conditions were almost unimaginable: winter cold, aftershocks continuing to threaten further collapse, and the overwhelming scope of the destruction. Pasha worked 12-hour shifts, searching through collapsed apartment buildings, hotels, and homes. On the fourth day after the earthquake, Pasha suddenly became animated at a particular section of rubble that had once been a 6-story apartment building. He began barking and digging, refusing to move away from the spot despite his handler's attempts to guide him to other areas. The rescue team began the painstaking process of removing debris where Pasha had indicated. Hours of careful work followed. They couldn't use heavy equipment for fear of harming anyone who might be trapped alive, so much of the work had to be done by hand. After nearly 6 hours of digging, they heard a voice beneath several feet of concrete and twisted metal. A 12-year-old girl named Elif was alive. She had been trapped in a small void space created when parts of the building collapsed, but didn't completely crush the area where she was located. She had been trapped for 97 hours, more than 4 days, without food and with minimal water. She had spent that time in complete darkness, injured and terrified, praying for rescue. Thanks to Pasha's detection and the rescue team's efforts, Elif was pulled from the rubble alive. Elif's rescue was one of the miracle survivals that brought hope during an otherwise tragic disaster. She spent weeks in the hospital recovering from her injuries, broken bones, dehydration, and hypothermia, but she survived. Her family, who had also been trapped in the collapse, were not as fortunate. Pasha's detection had saved Elif but came too late for her parents. Pasha continued working throughout the disaster response, helping locate dozens of other victims, though sadly most were not alive. The emotional toll on search dogs in disasters is significant. They get distressed when they cannot find live people, which is why handlers work to ensure the dogs have successful finds, even if they have to stage them. But Pasha's work in finding Elif reminded everyone why these dogs are so crucial. Without Pasha's incredible sense of smell and determination, Elif would have died in that rubble, and her survival brought hope to an entire nation grieving tremendous loss. The legacy of hero dogs. These stories represent just a fraction of the countless times dogs have saved human lives throughout history. What makes these acts of heroism particularly remarkable is that dogs choose to help us. They aren't obligated by law or social contracts. Their heroism comes from loyalty, love, and an almost incomprehensible willingness to put themselves in danger to protect the humans they care about. From guide dogs leading their blind handlers down 78 flights of stairs in a burning building, to search and rescue dogs working through toxic rubble to find survivors, to family pets fighting off predators to protect children, to service dogs preventing suicides through their constant vigilance, dogs have proven themselves to be heroes in countless ways. What these stories teach us is that heroism takes many forms. It's the dramatic rescue, yes, but it's also the quiet companionship that keeps someone from giving up. It's the trained response performed under the worst conditions imaginable, but it's also the untrained instinct to protect a child from danger. It's the celebrated national hero with medals and honors, but it's also the unknown stray dog who fights a leopard to save a boy he barely knows. These dogs didn't understand medals or recognition. They didn't calculate risk versus reward. They simply saw someone they loved in danger and acted to protect them. Or they were trained for a job and performed it with dedication, even when conditions became terrifying. Their heroism reminds us of the extraordinary bond between humans and dogs, a relationship that has endured for thousands of years and continues to save lives every single day. As we honor these canine heroes, we should remember that hero dogs are all around us. Service dogs helping veterans and people with disabilities, therapy dogs bringing comfort in hospitals and schools, search and rescue dogs training for the next disaster, police and military dogs protecting our communities, and family pets who would, without hesitation, defend their humans from any threat. Each one is a potential hero waiting for the moment they might be called upon to save a life. Their stories inspire us not just because they're dramatic, but because they remind us of what loyalty, courage, and love truly